What occurred was that the ballots had to be put through the sorters, and each team, Your Honor, in the tabulation room, which is, I would say, roughly the size of this courtroom, and there are about a dozen to 13 different stations, and each station has a computer, and each computer is affixed to a sorter. And the process is a manual process whereby the teams put the cards into the sorter and the computer operates it, and when an undervote is identified, then the machine stops. And the operator then must take the card out physically and put it into what was then an envelope that was marked by precinct. And this process would continue until the approximately 10,750 so-called undervotes were then identified. So this process started at 10 o'clock, and since the folks were new to the program, there was a lot of training, on-the-job training, so to speak, with respect to the machine operation during the course of the entire day. Some operators were not very familiar with the operation of the machine, and therefore the process started out very slowly.
And were there machine problems in the process?
Yes, there were a number of machine problems in the process in this sense, and I observed several of them. First, the operators would have to take a stack of voting cards and then fan them physically in order to put them properly into the sorter. And this was necessary in order to get the proper alignment so that the machine could start. And then very frequently the machine would jam, and the card would be taken out, the lead card would be taken out, and then physically manipulated along the top side and along the side, shorter side of the voting card in order for it to align properly back into the machine. And so there was a lot of stops and starts, and at one point I know David stopped the process and retrained several of the operators.
When you're saying there was fanning, you mean like this with these ballot cards?
No, I mean fanning like you would do with a deck of cards. They would take the stack of ballots and then fan them for whatever reason, and then put them in the sorter. And it was my understanding that was necessary in order to properly align them.
All right, sir. Let me ask you this, not to belittle anybody and not to criticize anyone under these stressful, extraordinary circumstances. Did you observe any dropping of precinct trays?
Yes. On the 19th, an entire tray of ballots from precinct 214, is my recollection, fell and splashed all over the floor and was picked up and then put back in the tray in order.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
The inquiry. Oh, wait just a minute, Mr. Clark.
Sure, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Spencer, just a couple of questions. You testified, did you not, that there was no evidence whatsoever of a voter tabulation system problem after the 1% manual test was done? Is that correct?
That was a statement which Supervisor Leahy made, yes.
Did either of the other canvassing commission members say anything contradictory to that?
Not to my recollection,
Okay.
no.
And with respect to the 6 ballots out of the 5,000 that were kicked out of a 90% Democratic selection of precincts.
Excuse me, I made an error with respect to my last answer. I do recall now that Judge King said that he believed that by virtue of the net gain of 6 votes, there was to him an error.
Okay.
And Judge Lair disagreed, and that's why there was a 2-to-1
2-to-1 vote. Very good. And the 6 votes that were kicked out of 5,000 votes that were looked at in 90% predominantly Democratic precincts, in each of the cases of those 6 ballots, there was voter error in terms of the ballots?
That's right. Obviously, the voter didn't carry out the instructions by punching through and examining carefully the ballot to make sure there were no hanging chads so that the machine could read it.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Kitchen, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, Mr. Spencer. I'm
Good
Dino.
afternoon.
I'm Dino Kitchen. I'm a lawyer here in Tallahassee. I'm a trial lawyer, and I'm a Democrat. I understand that you're a lawyer. You do commercial work. You're a Republican. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, from what you see me doing now, I have a dog in this fight, and it'd be fair to say you do too. Wouldn't it?
Well, sir, I had a dog in the fight before I walked into the courtroom, but while I'm here to assist the court.
Certainly, but you still have your feelings and your beliefs.
Absolutely.
Now let's take a look here. Mr. Leahy, he's a supervisor in Miami-Dade, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Honest man?
Very honest man.
Fair man?
Fair man.
Competent man?
Very competent.
Do you think that Mr. Leahy is capable of supervising the segregation or separation of undervotes from the rest of the ballots? Do you think he's capable of that?
Well, I think he is, but that wasn't the process. The machine did it.
Okay. But whether he did it through the use of his machine, through the use of the clerks, through the use of other personnel, is that office capable of doing that?
In my view, they were capable of doing it, yes.
Now, the fact is that at some point, there were some hand-counted votes of some of the undervotes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, there were approximately, and I say approximately, 10,750 undervotes, as we've been called. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said about 15% or some portion there was actually hand-counted.
Yes, sir.
Did Mr. Leahy see that the hand count was fair?
Well, that would be a judgment that I would disagree with.
So you thought Mr. Leahy was not fair in the hand count?
Well, I would have to answer it this way. I would say, from my perspective, no. And let me explain this. I would not question in any way, shape, or form the integrity or the motives or independence of Mr. Leahy, but and I think the world of him. But I think that that the decisions that were being made, as I observed them, and I was as close to him as this computer screen is, were, in my view, not correct.
In judging his actions, Mr. Spencer, wouldn't it be fair to say that having a dog in the fight could certainly affect how you observe things?
I would say that absolutely the fact that what I observed, in my view, was not correct, not fair, not in accordance with what I perceive to be the law or the purpose of the voter law, would absolutely lead me to the conclusion that it was not fair.
Okay, sir.
Or right.
Mr. Spencer, I'm really not directing my questions to your views of the law,
Okay.
but what you observed and how you saw it happening is what I'm talking about. The fact is that approximately 1,750 of these undervotes were hand counted, correct?
Yes, sir.
And 436 additional votes were counted out of that hand count. Were
That was the report and conclusion of a majority of the board.
Did you think the people hand counting were capable of fairly and honestly giving their best judgment as to whether those 436 votes should be added to the tally?
Well, sir, my view was that the system that they were using to make those determinations was not right, was not fair, and was not in accordance with what I believe the result should be.
Whatever the system selected by those charged with the duty of making that decision? Were they attempting, in your view, to fairly and honestly go through that decision-making process?
I think that they were using a sense of fairness that they believed was appropriate, just as they did when they decided to stop the manual recount.
So-
I think that they had the best of motives involved in both circumstances, even though I disagreed with the decision that they made with respect to their analysis of the so-called undervotes.
Fine. As an American citizen, we all agree you got the right to differ on that.
Thank you, sir.
But the simple fact is they came up with an additional 436 votes, didn't they?
I don't believe that
436 votes were added to the total count from the 7